Welcome everybody, this is Cardiff Met Radio. We're bringing you all the sports action over the next hour. I'm your host Matt Seddon. I'm joined by Rob, the co-host.
That's right, we're taking over the station tonight. We're going to be bringing you everything Cardiff Met and beyond.
Well, hello Rob, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Taking over today. I'm quite excited, you know.
Super excited. I mean, we've got an action-packed hour coming up. We're going to cover pretty much all sports. We're going to start with the athletics, and then we're going to head over to the rugby, and then finish up with the football.
Yeah, quite lucky we've got our two area of expertise. Since it is just me and you in the studio today, you got the athletics covered. I've got the rugby covered, I hope. And Griff will visit us later for a bit of football.
A nice little guest appearance from Griff. Yes, mate. Well, let's start with the quick news headlines around the campus today.
Hello and welcome to Cardiff Met Sport TV Radio. We've got a jam-packed show in store for you today, but first, the latest news from the Archers. Smiles for all those involved in both the men's and women's football on the weekend. Cardiff Met men have successfully made it into the Nathaniel MG Cup final after a thrilling 3-2 win over Barrytown United. The goals coming from Adam Roscoe, Emlyn Lewis and Elliot Evans. The women faced similar success against Pontypridd Town AFC, winning 4-0 to keep them in second place in Junior Adrian Premier League. Both Bucks teams kicked off today at Bath University at 2 p.m. We'll bring you the final scores later on in the show. The women's rugby team play their home match against Loughborough at 4, whilst the men face Durham away this evening. Our rugby correspondent Rob Burke will tell us more about the fixture later on in the programme, as well as an exclusive interview with Danny Milton. It was an unsuccessful weekend for the women's basketball team. They lost 97-54 to Essex Rebels on Saturday. They hope for a better result against Sevenoaks Suns this week. And finally, amazing news for Archer athletes Jake Smith and Jenny Nesbitt, who have both successfully qualified for Great Britain to compete in the European Cross Country Championships in Dublin in just 2 weeks' time. We hear from both next in the show.
Well, yeah, look, Rob, let me bring you in. I was actually fortunate enough to be at the European Cross Country Trials on Saturday. So just a note, Charlotte obviously rounded up in the news bulletin just there. Jenny Nesbitt, student here on our course actually, and Jake Smith as well, student at Cardiff Met, both qualifying for the European Cross Country Championships. So I'll give you the lowdown on what happened there. But first, look, I'm just going to give you a little bit of context to the meet. They host the European Cross Country Trials, okay, to qualify for the European Championships, which is in two weeks' time. And interestingly, controversially to be fair, the selection policy is top 4 across the line will qualify automatically for GB, and then there's 2 discretionary spots, okay? So these 2 spots, if you come 5th or 6th, it's not guaranteed that you'll go. They take into account people who may be ill on the day and don't compete, or for example, say if Mo Farah wanted to compete, they would give him a discretionary spot. So Jake here, he actually finished 7th on the day, but has just managed to sneak in and get that qualification.
Right, so no, this is the thing. I know you're a big man, well into your athletics as well. You said controversial positions, the discretionary ones. Why do you say they're controversial? What do you mean? It sounds like a pretty good idea to me. Obviously, you know, I like watching athletics. Don't know too much about the qualification process though. Why is it controversial to have those guys, those kind of positions? It sounds pretty fair to me.
Yeah, so like a lot of people don't like it because it means that it's not clear on the day. For example, you know, if you have that discretionary spot, people want to turn up on the day and they just want to qualify for GB and that's it, all right? But like I say, if you're not fit on the day, you shouldn't be competing in 2 weeks' time. That's what a lot of people say. They say it's not clear cut. And in athletics isn't like a rich money sport anyway. And you talk about like sort of like prize money and sponsorship deals. A lot of athletes will have written into their contract that if they represent GB or they compete in Europe, they'll get like a bonus of some sort, right? So they want it to be clear because this is where politics can come into play, and this is where favoritism come into play. Yeah. Athletics is a sport where there's a lot of coaches on the board as well, on the selectors board. And if a coach is coaching an athlete who doesn't turn up, we actually have that instance in Chris Jones, who's a Welsh coach. He actually coaches Jenny, but he also coaches another athlete, Charlotte Arter. She didn't run on the day, but she's been picked over someone who actually competed on the day. So that's why it's controversial. But I kind of agree. If you have your best person who doesn't get to compete, they should be competing in Europe.
Yeah, I kind of see the angle you're going with. Like, Jake did run on the day. He didn't make it into the spots. He's in. But you're saying an athlete that didn't even run has been picked over someone who didn't necessarily get in the top 4, ran on the day, though, and still hasn't qualified because someone else maybe favoured before the competition was even run. I get what you're saying, but I can kind of see why they're there. Like you use the example of Mo Farah, maybe that's what has influenced my thinking, because like I said, this is kind of the first time I'm talking about the qualification process in athletics for this type of competition. And it does sound like, if Mo Farah's not there, he's going to go. It's a bit like if Ronaldo doesn't train but he's fit by Saturday, you're gonna play him, or he's going to be in the team. And I feel like without that, you're at risk of losing some of your top athletes. Like COVID, maybe if you're, if these top athletes, let's say if Jenny had a little a COVID isolation that ended the day of the race, but then 2 weeks' time, she's fully recovered and she can suddenly race again. I don't see why she couldn't. It's not her fault she had to isolate. She's clearly one of the best there. You've got to take her with her. And without this qualification process, without this, discretionary spots, she wouldn't race. And she's clearly one of the better athletes. So from my point of view, maybe, like you say, slightly controversial point of view, I don't know, maybe a lot of people agree with it. It sounds like a good idea. I can't see what's wrong with it. There's 4 spots on the day. If you want to race on the day, get in that top 4. If you can't get in the top 4, I'm sorry, mate. Unless you've got that little bit of money in the bank with the coaches, maybe the selectors, like Jake clearly does from his success, then I'm sorry, you have to get quicker.
Do you know what? It's so interesting hearing it from your perspective, not being involved in athletics. Because if you spoke to anyone in athletics, they would say it's unfair. They would say it should just be black and white. Do you know what I mean? But it's interesting to hear your perspective on it, because it kind of opened my eyes as well.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Like you say, we spoke about it in class before. I know you follow athletics much more than I do. I'll watch the race and I don't really mind whoever's in it. I'll just support whoever does actually run on the day. I don't know though.
It's a safety. The thing is different to other sports, right? Athletics is an individual sport.
Yeah. Especially
cross-country running, it's an individual sport. So it's all about giving those people the opportunity to really break through. Otherwise, they're never going to get that opportunity. For example, if on the day you come 6th and you don't get picked, that could be your only chance to represent your nation.
Yeah. So where do you stand on it then? Because
I think
you said Jake did come 6th.
Yes.
And now he is.
Yes. So Jake's qualified. So they haven't had an instance where they had the men. They basically took the top 6 because no one who didn't run was good enough.
So that's
for them
easy
to
then.
swap in, But on the women's side, they did have that. That did happen.
Slightly controversial.
Controversial, yeah. So Jake was fine. So he got picked. So he's over the moon, obviously. But yeah, in our sport, I just think because it's so individual, and some people, you never know like how long you're going to be around for, how long you're going to be at the top of the game. You don't have the backing of a team. It's all very individual. A lot of people are unfunded as well. So it's all about giving them that best opportunity to represent their country. And that may only come along once in a blue moon. Yeah,
no, I agree with what you're saying. The opportunity is there. The thing is, the opportunity is there for everyone. The people running the race that came maybe 7th or 8th or even lower down, but within a chance of qualifying, they've got their opportunity. It's not fair from the way I can see it, that just because, I suppose it is circumstantial. If I don't turn up because I can't be bothered to race on the day.
Yeah. Well, this is
fair enough, but I feel like the selectors will take that into account, though.
If we get into more politics as well, this is what sometimes happens. The favourite may not want to ease down in training. They may not want to race on the day, and they may want, they don't want to compete in that race on that trial day just in case they get beat. But obviously, they know they're good enough to compete at the Europeans. So that's where the politics comes in. But look, let's start talking about the race a little bit. Let's summarise that. Let's just hear from Jake real quick and his thoughts on the race.
Thank you very much.
Just been selected for the European Championships.
Yes.
Look, how did the race pan out on Saturday for you?
It was a great race. Like the only thing I want to improve on is the start, because I just didn't get out hard enough, and I think I started quite far to the left, so I almost got cut up. But I worked quite well through. I got past people the whole time, and I caught up to not the front pack, but hopefully in Europeans I can get onto that front pack to begin with, and then just see how long I can hold on for.
Stick with them.
Yes.
How and when did you receive the news that you were selected? Because obviously you had to wait a couple of days.
I received it yesterday off, what's his name? I forgot his name. Mick Woods. I received it yesterday, so I was in coffee one, just having a coffee and some food, and he calls me, and it was really nice. So yeah, messaged Kieran, family, Henry and James straight away, and Kieran says to me, "You are, I swear words, at cross country." So yeah, it was good fun.
and another cross country coming up. How are you going to prepare for Europeans in a couple of weeks' time?
Well, first of all, I'll make sure I won't go out. Go out before the race, but I'm just gonna train. I have a plan for this week, and then next week it's just about settling down and getting ready for the race.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And then, are you enjoying cross country?
Yeah, it's all right. I've liked it so far because it hasn't been too muddy. But I was talking to one of the guys here who was telling me about the race, and he says some of the parts are really dry, but some of the parts can get really muddy. So it's going to be quite testing, and I think with the team, quite a few of us are quite big into road running, like Jack Rowe, Andy Butchart. So it's going to be interesting to see how we cope on the muds, if there's any. And yeah, I'm not so sure what the weather's going to be like, but if it's like Liverpool, I think I'll be all right.
You should be all right. Well, thank you, Jake.
Thank you very much.
Well, look, yeah, that was Jake's thoughts on the race. And I'll just pick up on that last point, Rob, where I asked him, are you enjoying cross country? And the reason I ask him that is because he is someone who's very good on the road. Okay, he just signed a deal with Nike last week. We don't know for how much money. It's not been disclosed yet. But he is officially a Nike-sponsored athlete here at Cardiff Met, which is a huge deal. That's as high as it gets in the athletics world. He's funded by our governing body as well, British Athletics. So, but yeah, the reason I asked him, are you enjoying cross country, is because he's very good on the road, and he's not performed on cross country just yet. And as he said, he doesn't like it when it's muddy. I don't know if anyone's seen Jake run before, but if you do watch him run, the guy's a gazelle. His knee lift is exceptional. It comes up so high, and he really needs that firm terrain to really bounce off and drive off the terrain when he's running. So when he comes to the grass, he kind of sinks, he slips a lot, and his mechanics just aren't made to just plow through the mud. And interestingly enough, some of the guys who beat him on the weekend, they don't really have a knee lift. they're big guys. They were 6 foot. He must be 5'7" and 55 kilos, man. The guy is so, yeah, he's a very small guy. And, when you factor in cross country, there's no pacemakers, so there's no wind block as well. And it was very windy on the weekend. And I think that's why when I spoke to James Thea's coach, I said we are happy with the weekend's result because, Jake is someone who is one of the best distance runners in Europe, let alone our country, but he was only 6th at our national trials. And James said to me, he said, you know what? I'm happier now he got picked because obviously he wasn't sure he was going to get picked. He said, I'm happier now he got picked. But yeah, I think we're starting to learn that maybe cross country isn't quite, his best discipline. And he is someone who's going to attack the road scene and the marathon. Do you understand that, being a non-athletics fan? Do you understand the difference in terrain and the difference in our sport?
Yeah, it's been a long time since I did any kind of cross country. We're talking, year 7, 8 and 9 when they cancel your football because you haven't behaved quite well enough and they've made you go out in the rain. I couldn't agree more. When it's raining and it's muddy, there was nothing worse than that kind of lesson when you just got that short distance for you, I imagine, but it was a pain for us. No, it's nice hearing from Jake, actually, because like you say, this is relatively new to me. I think everything I know about cross-country comes from you. But yeah, no, he sounds excited about it all. You said about the qualification process, and maybe a little bit more about the politics and the serious side of it, but as I suppose a fan, if you can call it that, hearing him how he found out he qualified, once you win the race, that's exciting. But then he's got like a bit of uncertainty. Did I qualify? Did I not? The supporters of Jake, his family, are all on their edge of their seats. And luckily for them, it was, jubilation, celebration in the end that he did actually get selected. I kind of like the element of it, mate. That whole thing is growing on me. But yeah, like you say, it sounds like he's having a good time. Maybe cross country isn't his forte and he kind of needs the conditions to favour him a little bit, but yeah, it'd be exciting to see what he can do.
Yeah, and I think it's something that he's just building into his preparations for the road season, man. Like in cross country terms, it kind of gives you that strength and that endurance to go on and do a quick 10K and do a quick half marathon, which is his discipline. He's half marathon and marathon. He's going to be. I spoke to him a little while back, and he actually had some testing. Of Eliud Kipchoge, right?
Yeah.
He had some testing done with the same physio who tested Kipchoge for the sub 2 hour project, and they said, look, you can run probably a 2:06 marathon right now. And to put that into context, that's the same time Mo Farah's ran.
Yeah,
so,
I know that's quick.
Yeah, and Jake Smith's 22 years old, so, but still that element of a Cardiff Met student, he's talking about nights out, and he's saying, maybe I'm going to need to curb that before the Europeans.
We got Joe Breyer out with us on the weekend as well. Like he said, he's settling down just before Christmas. But that's the amazing thing, like you said, they all just switch back on. They have their little celebration with their mates, blah blah blah. Like I'm sure he was over the moon qualifying, especially like you say with those circumstantial positions. but they just snap on. Like you said, they snap on, train and bang. And no, I wish them all the best. Fair play.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's quickly just move on to Jenny as well on our course. Second year student on our sports broadcast course, and she actually came second. So previously she'd been in a similar boat to Jake. Okay, she'd left it to the selectors whether to get picked, but she finished second, wrapped it up, qualified. She knew she was going, and that's someone who's really gone strength to strength this cross country season. She's finished second in both the UK Winter Tours and their World Tours as well, actually, now. So just a note on that, she's probably raking in a good bit of prize money. I think she's getting £1,000 every one she comes second in, and she's come again. So she's heading for that overall prize money, which is £5,000 if she does a couple more of them, because not everyone has competed. So she's doing really well, and she's heading off to Europe as well. We would have loved to speak to Jenny, but unfortunately, being a very busy athlete.
It is a busy like we say, when they switch it on, it's hard to get hold of them. Hopefully, we'll get her on a little bit of an off season in the future.
We talk about that. We talk about, Jake having fun, being nights out. That's a little bit of a Cardiff lad coming in. Jenny is the polar opposite, man.
Yeah.
I've spoken to Jenny before. She's in bed by 10 p.m. every night. I think she's asleep by 10 p.m. every night. Very sort of, if you like, me and you would call it a boring lifestyle.
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't know. Doesn't suit us right now, but one day. when you start training me up to be a CrossFit athlete, cross-country athlete, we'll get in there. No, but like you say, it's interesting to see both sides of the coin. I suppose both of them are elite athletes. There's no question about that. You mentioned Jake's Nike contract, but Jenny, second, it's wrapped, it's done. She knows she's going, and that's also, like I said, it's kind of an interesting way of doing it as well, because as a supporter such as yourself of cross-country, seeing your favourite athletes once they're a little bit further into their career, just wrap it up, take a breath back. But Jake's only 22, like you say. Yeah. Maybe a little bit too much excitement qualifying the way he did, but he'll learn from that. He'll learn that he doesn't want to go through that again. As much as it ended with a happy story,
absolutely,
he'll want it wrapped up in the future. And
it's interesting you touch on the age. Jenny's 26, going to be 27. So. Yeah, and when we talk about like nights out and stuff, I think she's had that time in her career. Yeah. And I think when you're younger, you recover a lot more from a night out. Me and you can speak from experience, mate. You seem to recover a lot quicker than me on a night out.
Yeah, our Monday mornings are a little bit different.
As I'm always moving a bit ropey. So, and Jenny appreciates that. And, I don't know if it's a male and female thing as well. Females seem more content to really knuckle down and give it, as I think guys always like to have a bit of fun with the sport.
Yeah, it's the thing is, it's the aging as well. Like you said, I didn't know much about Jenny before the show when we were talking about it, but before we did our research, or I suppose I did my research, you already got it all up there locked up. But you kind of see the different ages before you actually find out that there is like a 5 or 6 year age gap between them.
Yeah.
Because, athletes peak at different times, like you said about Jake running 6 minutes over the 2 hours for the marathon. That's an incredible time, but he's young and he's got time to develop. Jenny, like you say, switched on. She maybe doesn't have that off season, and it's nice to see two athletes that are both from our ends just doing it in different ways, but both being successful.
Yeah, and look, summarise on that, the European Championships is in Dublin, Ireland, and you can catch Jenny and Jake both live on the BBC Red Button and BBC Two on the Sunday, the 12th of December. The race is due to start at 10 a.m. And they proceed. So I think Jake and Jenny will be roughly about midday because they have a couple junior races before them. All right. Now, let's just quickly let you know what's going on tonight in Nyack. We've got tonight's dual meet between Birmingham Uni and Cardiff Met. And that's going to be based on mainly sprints. I think the longest discipline is 600 metres, but it's basically just a dual match. Us, and obviously if you win the race you get 1 point. If you finish fourth in the race, there's going to be two athletes from each uni per event. You get 4 points if you come fourth, and it's just this team with the lowest score. So a good bit of fun. Not usually indoors this early on for athletics, I've got to admit, but it's a chance for the freshers to really sort of socialise and mingle, and our up and coming athletes to prove themselves ready for Bucks indoors come February time. And the Christmas Classic on the 19th of December to get a qualification to be able to compete in that meet as well for Cardiff Met. So a good bit of fun in Nyack tonight. That action kicks off at 6:30. It's 2.5 hours of action basically till 9 o'clock. So I'm going to be over there commentating. Come on down if you want. It should be good fun. But look, let's head over to the rugby, shall we, Rob? Your expertise.
Yeah, no, as I say, I enjoyed that little lesson on a bit of cross country, but I'm much more comfortable talking about what we know.
Same thing in a muddy field.
yeah, it's all the same, really.
People running around a muddy field.
Literally, you'd like to think you don't get tackled in the middle of a cross country race, but yeah. So we're going to move on to the rugby segment then of the show. We do have a little interview from Danny Milton looking back at the last time they played Durham. They're on the road already, I imagine, and they might have even gone last night. So yeah, we're going to hear a little bit from Danny, and then we're going to break it down in the studio.
Let's go.
20 minutes, which was our start to Buck Super Rugby this year. We probably were, you know, caught out by the speed and the physicality that Durham brought in that first 20 minutes. We certainly managed to get ourselves back into that game in the second half in what was a really tightly contested game. But I think probably more of the same. They're a direct side. They know the type of side that they want to, you know, the type of rugby that they want to play. We've got no illusions about what we'll expect tomorrow, and we'll front up. We'll bring that level of physicality, and you know, Hollow Drift, always a good venue to go up and play, and a nice away trip for us. So we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, so hearing from Danny Milton there, it's interesting hearing his thoughts, because obviously we have our own opinions watching pretty much every game week in, week out. It's nice to see them reflecting on how they played before, and just to know that they're aware of the mistakes they made, and hopefully they can improve on them. Since that game, Durham is one of the first games we did actually play. It was a draw here at Rugby One on Concord campus. We've always said that the coaching staff involved with the rugby are quite good at learning and adapting, and I know there's quite a big gap between the games that you come to see. Have you noticed an improvement since, you know, the early days that you
Look,
watched?
yeah. For me, not really being a rugby fan, but I'm always down, you know, we're on the cameras and stuff, we're watching the games. It seems like Cardiff Met, I mean, I did my undergrad and graduated in 2017. And the games I went to then, compared to the games I go to now, it seems like much more of the team ethos. And it seems like the players, I knew a couple of players from halls and stuff when I was at uni doing my undergrad, and they seem much more of a tighter bunch. Like you said, I think, am I right in thinking they rotate the squad quite a bit? People kind of get benched, but players seem okay with that. They just want to win collectively and do what's best. I think they change their tactics as well, depending on each game and who they're up against, which is quite interesting. And players don't seem to take that to heart. It's almost like, you know, if we compare it to football, the way Man City operate and the way Pep Guardiola, they're willing to die for each other out there. And I think it shows when we come here, it's an absolute fortress, and the fans as well are just as on board with the team aspect of the game.
No, yeah, it's really interesting that you said that about the collectiveness of the squad, because I can't express enough how important I think that is. The only other time I've actually seen a group of boys act the way the Cardiff Met men are now is with the Swansea team. Like you spoke about when you were back in halls. When I was back in halls, I was across the country in Swansea, and those boys weren't in Super Bucks. Swansea isn't necessarily known as a sports uni, whereas Cardiff Met, Loughborough, they've got a massive name. They know exactly where they come from. They've got the history there. When I joined Swansea, the program, you know, university rugby is always, you know, a bit higher of a level than a lot of sports are. But they weren't in Bucks. Their team was good. You know, they got results now and again. It was a good enough standard to go down and watch. And then almost by chance, those Swansea boys just all came together. They got their squad and joined in first year. They came through first year, second year, third year. I think in my first year, there were 6 or 7 freshers in the first team, because they were good enough and they all knew each other and they grew. So second year, it was almost a friendship group playing rugby together, and then they get promoted to Bucks in their second year all together. And that is you see so many similarities with these boys now. Maybe it's because of COVID, and you know, they weren't playing for such a long period of time, but they were still mates because they had first year together in halls, got to know each other, and then all of a sudden rugby's gone, and all you have is those friendships that you built. And it's so clear that now they're coming back into third year. They're all friends. They all know each other, and now they got rugby, and now they want to win together. Do you know what I mean? That's what they got left. And yeah, you spoke about the rotation of players. I think they're just like, mate, he's a big centre. You're bigger than me. You're going to do a better job at tackling him. Get in there and win us the game. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, I'm excited for it. It's a good ethos to have.
Who are the senior players on the team at the moment that are sort of stepping up, leading?
There's plenty, and I think what's quite beautiful about it is that they're all over the pitch as well. Like a lot of the time, outside the engine room on the wing, you don't see too many boys getting vocal. They're normally the quick freshers like Roma Zeng. Don't get me wrong, he's plenty vocal, and he is a leader in himself. He can carry his team to plenty of tries this season. But Brad Denty on the other side, he's an experienced player. He's well known in Bucks. If you look at some of the rankings, he's got plenty of points, plenty of tries. he's got a lot of experience. And when you can have people like Ewan Shenton, who's not even in the team, but he's club captain, still making such an influence on the whole team and the leaders they have, they're on for a winning formula. And, you know, you look at the table now, I always say don't read into it too much.
Talk about the table for a little bit. Because for me, what have we picked up? 2 losses now? A draw and 2 losses, and both those losses on the road. So how does that impact the table going forward, the post-season, if you like, the playoff season?
Yeah.
How does that impact Cardiff Met?
No, so like we said, you know, it's interesting because, you know, we're sitting 4th in the table, and for you know, a table of 10, you wouldn't expect maybe me and Griff particularly to speak so positively about a team that isn't necessarily in the top 3.
Yep.
Just outside, given, but
even
you know,
though we are biased.
Yeah, like you said, you can't afford to lose too many points, and I think being outside the top 3 it means a lot more than a lot of the league tables. So I mean, top 4 in the Premier League, you're sitting pretty. In Bucks, you can't slip down too far.
Okay.
In terms of moving forward, we've got 3 away games on the bounce. We had Loughborough last week, we've got Durham today, and Swansea next week. We said it on the podcast. These games are kind of title deciders. In terms of the title, I think, you know, if you're losing to Loughborough, losing to Durham, we'll see what happens today. Maybe the title's out your hands. But yeah, the playoffs at the end of the season. As long as you have this positive mentality and you're in it at the end, everyone's got a chance, mate. That, you know.
Do you know what have they got to do to make them playoffs?
Yeah, so top 8, and it's gonna be a playoff then. Classic knockout style.
Is it 8? Do they seed it 8v1?
Yeah. So you know, you're better off being at the top. Don't get me wrong. So you don't want to just cruise and find yourself in the playoffs. It's definitely better off being up there. But yeah, like these games now. So we've got Durham today. Interesting game. Me and Griff were discussing it. But the one I'm looking for is Swansea. If you can get a result today, and then go away to Swansea. Derby days, anything can happen, and we saw what happened with Bath. You know, that was their derby, their varsity, and immediately you saw what they wanted to do. They wanted to make it physical.
Yeah.
They wanted to, you know, make it spicy off the ball, kind of. Do you know what I mean? They were starting a little bit of a, you know, they were getting
in that Bath game. Can we question their defence a little bit? Because Met, don't get me wrong, they score tries. They score a lot of tries, right? And they've got a few bonus points this season because of the volume of tries they've scored. But is their defence questions to be asked as well? Because they're also conceding a lot.
Oh, yeah, you've got to ask questions about a defence who can concede 40 points in one half of rugby, and especially in a game where you were on top before that. It may be bias slipping in with this opinion a little bit, but I think it wasn't so much Cardiff Met being bad. It was that Bath found their rhythm for one of the first times this season.
Okay.
Like, we've seen a lot of big teams come to Cardiff. Like we said, we haven't played many away games. All of our games have been home. And Bath in that second half were top 2 of the teams that I've seen actually come to Rugby 1. War Boys, Mignot, the fullback, and the 10 for Bath were phenomenal. So, you know, maybe you can question the defence a little bit, maybe a mentality, maybe it was just the fact that it was a varsity. But I think it was more the fact that Bath were just so good. And I think a similar thing with the Loughborough game, we give up a good fight. It was a close game. Loughborough are just so good. Everyone is just so good in this league. And that's why it's so important to win tonight and to beat Swansea next week.
What time's kick-off tonight?
I imagine it'll be about 7 o'clock. They're on the road now. They've stayed overnight. So they would have left yesterday probably. They'll have plenty of time to get sorted and get ready. And then again, away to Swansea next week, similar time, 7 o'clock roughly.
We'll check the live tweets. Right, we're just going to check over to your news on the half hour.
And now, the sports news at 3:30. The women's rugby are warming up for their 4 p.m. kick-off against Loughborough this afternoon. They are hoping for a win after a 10-17 defeat to Hartpury last week. For the men, despite still being unbeaten at home in the Bucks Super Rugby this season, they suffered a loss on the road last week against Loughborough. They play away again tonight against Durham. Let's hope for a better result this evening, Archers. Amazing news for athletes Jake Smith and Jenny Nesbitt, who have both successfully qualified for Great Britain to compete in the European Cross Country Championships in Dublin in just 2 weeks' time. We wish both of them the greatest luck. And in the Women's British Basketball League, the Archers faced defeat against Essex Rebels. They play Sevenoaks Suns this weekend. For the football, there was great success with both the men's and women's teams on the weekend. Cardiff Met men have successfully made it into Nathaniel MG Cup final after an electrifying 3-2 win over Barrytown United. The goals coming from Adam Roscoe, Emlyn Lewis and Elliot Evans. The men are playing away to Kevin Druids on Saturday and are currently sat at 11th in the Welsh Premier League. The women faced similar success against Pontypridd Town AFC, winning 4-0 to keep them in second place in the Gennaro Adrian Premier League. They play Barrytown at home this coming weekend. In the Bucks now, both the men's and women's teams are currently playing away to Bath University. It is an especially important game for the women, as Bath sit in second, just one place below the mighty Archers who are dominating the league in first. Wales women lost 2-0 last night against France. Ex-Archer Sophie Ingle appeared in the starting lineup for Wales. However, despite losing last night, Wales are doing really well and sitting second in their World Cup qualifying group, winning 5 out of their last 6 games.
Well, that was Charlotte with the sports news. Thank you, Charlotte. And as we just come back from that little break, let's talk about the women's rugby, because obviously they played last week, Rob. We spoke a lot about the men's. There's equally, our women are just as good.
Yeah. So it was their first time on Rugby 1. The men were away, as we said, to Loughborough. That opened it up for the women to take the stage on Rugby 1. And, you know, the loss they suffered wasn't ideal. I don't think there's any way of saying it other than that. But I was impressed. It was the first time I've actually gone to see the women in person. When you watch the highlights, maybe it's a bit biased. But the scoreline flattered Hartbury, I think. The women were really good. It's a different kind of game when you watch the women play. That's evident almost immediately.
Right.
But it's almost more enjoyable. It's a lot of touch and go, very quick game. The only thing that does slow it down were the injuries that we had, especially last week. But yeah, no, Hartbury came down. They've got a really good side. They sit in a pretty similar position to Cardiff Met. I think they might have just bounced over us with that result. But you know, they've got links with Gloucester. Those girls they train with Gloucester and some of them play when they're not training. So you know, they have an experienced side. Their captain in particular, she's been involved in the Hartbury side for almost 6 years now. Do you know, to have a captain with that much experience in university rugby is something that's quite rare, especially with COVID now. Yes.
On that note, do you think they should there be an age cap at university level?
No, but that's the thing. It's just the way she's done it. She's not necessarily older. She had 2 years with the college, which isn't a rare thing to do. Okay. And then she's done 3 years of university and then a master's as well. So she's not any older. She's not sitting... Yeah. I know a couple of boys in Swansea have sat a few degrees and maybe a couple of masters sprinkled in there just to get those caps up. But yeah, no, the Hartbury side's very experienced. And in all fairness, we had quite an experienced side. The late kickoff meant that a lot of the girls who do the teacher training and those kind of courses, they were available for the late kickoff. So basically it was 2 experienced sides and the Hartbury's captain basically dragged them through. I know we've got the highlights coming up. If you just have a listen, you can see the type of tries it was that were scored and the dominance that Cardiff Met actually show.
Was it a good turnout down at Bucks 1? Obviously, we know what the atmosphere can be like when the men play. Was it equally as good when the women were there? Yeah,
it was actually... to be honest, I didn't think about it too much. I was kind of just treating it like I do every rugby game, not worrying too much about the fans. And then I turned up and the crowd was already there. It was a big crowd as well. I don't want to say I was surprised, but I just hadn't experienced it before. And throughout the whole game, more and more people came. I don't know if they were hearing about the type of game they had. People text them, get down here, there's rugby on. You know how much the Kincoid boys love their rugby. But yeah, by the end, there was a good few hundred people there. And unfortunately, the girls couldn't get it across the line. But I imagine, you know, the motivation they got to see how many people are actually behind them, you can't match it, like the boys say.
Well, it's brilliant to see, and hopefully in the future we have, you know, when the men are on an away day, they fixture the women on a home game, and basically every Wednesday we can guarantee rugby under the lights here at the Cardiff Met Kincoid campus. That would be amazing and some atmosphere. But should we just tune in, catch those highlights? Let's see how the game fully went down. I know you've spoke about it, but let's get it from your point of view on game day.
Good evening everyone and welcome. You're joining us at Rugby 1 for the women's first time playing here this season in a slightly better position. from a Cardiff Mets point of view. Can they win the ball? They can. They've come away with it. Here is Cardiff Met. Cantrell with it. It's offload. It's over to this far side. It's in the hands of Godwin. Can't quite get over the line. It's dropped. That's a lovely kick is sent by Smith. Over to the far side. It's chased down by Godwin. Can't quite get there. And it's nudged into touch. Ellis is going to keep the ball moving. McKay once again. Cardiff Met pinned within 5 metres of the try line. Now offloaded nicely to Kirkby. Falls a couple of yards short. It's good covering. The ref doesn't mind it. Ellis is still there. As they break through the lines, they can't quite get it down. It's over on that far side. They do get it down. The crowd are like that one. Relentless pressure from Cardiff Met. Pays off. But perhaps sticking with what you are familiar with may come off. And it's going to take some strong runs, such as the one we've just seen there. And she's going to keep going. She's battled her way through a couple of challenges. It's a brilliant run from Kirkby for Cardiff Met. She can't quite go all the way, but she's got her team all the way from their own 5 metre line. The Jones twin is the one to bring them there. A looping ball sent, intercepted by Hartbury. It's a strong run. The recovering Cardiff Met players can't get there. It is the centre. It is Bridger. Oh, and it's intercepted once more. We've seen this before. Bridger with the ball in hands, running the pitch. The captain, she's going to go all the way. It's like for like. So it is going to be a scrum for Cardiff Met. Kirkby, as we say, leading by example. The captain, who usually plays wing, offloaded nicely. It's over on that far side. And Cardiff Met have gone all the way. We said look out for Tinman. As the ref blows the final whistle, it ends Hartbury 17, Cardiff Met 10.
Well, some cracking scenes from the women's rugby, but I'm excited to tell you I'm now joined with Griff, our football correspondent, and he's going to run us through. Him and Rob are going to have a little chat about that game last weekend.
Yeah, Cardiff Met played Barry at home in the semi-final of the Nathaniel MG Cup. It was a good game, to be fair, end to end, plenty of goals. 3-2 it was in the end for Cardiff Met. So they went behind 1-0 to start off, so not a brilliant start, and then Cardiff Met then came through with 3 goals, obviously mentioned previously by Charlotte in the news bulletin. And then really they had to cling on quite a bit against Barry. I spoke to Emlyn Lewis, defender for Cardiff Met, and he said it was kind of a bit, clinging on, maybe going to concede by the end. They did concede 1, so it went back to 3-2, but they managed to hold out in the end. Cardiff Met, it's a big win. I believe it's their 4th final of this cup since it started 5 years ago.
So their competition then.
This is their competition. This is like kind of Man City and the League Cup vibes. Cardiff Met and the Nathaniel MG Cup. That's where it's at. But they've only won it once. So they're going into the final. They're going to play Connors Quay Nomads. They've won the league 2 years on the bounce now. It's going to be a tough game when they do play them up there. And I believe it is at Connors Quay's home ground. It's meant to be a neutral ground.
There's been some mad kind of speculation on where the game is actually going to be.
And reports saying that maybe Connors Quay isn't the best place to host it because questions over is it accessible for fans to get there. Griff, you know the area quite well.
Yeah, I live quite close to Connors Quay and I've been there before to watch a few games. I think in general the ground is it's not the best ground in the world. I've been there. I didn't really enjoy my experience there. The weather was pretty horrific on that night, but it's I'll describe the ground for you. So there's one stand. It's an athletics track with a field in the middle, with a football pitch in the middle.
So
that's all it is.
You're already a little distance from the action.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think it's really a final kind of a venue for a final at all, to be honest. So I think it would be better if they'd have done it somewhere like Bala. So Bala's ground is 3G, not grass like Connors Quay's ground, but
which
that
may suit Met.
Would suit Met, of course, but Connors Quay, they're used to the ground. It's gonna be tough when they do go up there for that final.
Maybe that's where all the speculation's coming from then. If Connors Quay isn't actually the best place to host it, you're not going to have the fans, you're not going to have the venue. Maybe a little bit of a rejig is necessary.
And as well, just in general, the fans of the Welsh Prem and the Welsh football system, really, most of them come from more like Carnarvon, Bala, if you went Carnarvon as well, they would probably go to the game if it was in Bala.
Just give us a bit of geography where
Geography.
these places are for an Englishman like me, Griff.
Yeah,
All the Welsh
You're
boys are
listing these
chilling
names.
here.
I have no
And
idea.
when you were saying that, I was thinking, yeah, right, I got that. And then I looked across at Matt, and he was just like, yeah, nah.
So Carmarthen is west from Cardiff. I'd say it's about an hour and a half. It's still in the south.
Okay.
Then Bala is about 3 hours north, but it's fairly central. So I'd say it's almost straight up north from
Okay.
Cardiff or
Yeah, and it's
Yeah,
not
Barry
a
maybe.
complicated route to
No.
travel between any of
Yeah,
those as
okay.
well. We've only got a few roads in Wales. And
I think Carnarvon's probably the biggest fan base of them all. They are based in northwest Wales, so it's close to Anglesey. Do you know what Anglesey is, Matt?
No.
Anglesey is the little bit. Oh,
Yeah.
there's a map on the wall, actually.
Oh, yeah.
You can-
Right, okay,
I know
I've got you. Yeah.
For the listeners, if you,
Physical maps don't work on radio.
yeah, it's essentially if you look at the map of Wales,
The top left corner.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
kind of an arm out in the north. If you imagine on top of the arm,
Essentially, what you're saying,
like-
though, is that it doesn't suit Connor's Key to host the
No.
final.
No, that's my
If you're
opinion
looking at the
anyway.
fans, if you want to keep them in mind, which you definitely do, especially at this level, we haven't got people flying over from America or whatever to see this.
Yeah.
It's us who are going to go.
Yep.
You don't want it up there.
But it might be a tactical move from the people who are organising this competition because they know Connors Key, the other teams who are close to Connors Key, Kevin Druids, TNS, they don't have a lot of fans. It's not even a dig. They don't have a lot of fans. So having the final there, their fans will definitely go. And the chances are the students from Cardiff Met, they've got how many football teams? 7 teams the men's have. They will want to go anyway. So they might take a couple of buses from here and they'll have fans regardless. So it's an interesting one anyway.
Well, the date of that game is going to be scheduled for the 5th of February, and it's 12:30 p.m. kickoff, so a midday kickoff as well.
Yeah, it's early as well, isn't it? 12:30 to get from
Yeah,
Cardiff.
how do you feel about that for a cup final? 12:30 kickoff?
It's well, it's on it's
Like-
Saturday. It is, yeah, the 5th
Uh-huh.
of February. They might be thinking tactical, not to clash with any
3
other
PM
game.
kickoffs.
Yeah, 3 p.m s. Maybe they've seen the fixture list for maybe Cardiff and Swansea, Wrexham, Newport. You know, the big teams in Wales.
You'll still be on the road, though. If you make that journey up there to Corners Key, you're missing the 3 o'clock kickoff back
Yeah,
in Swansea.
yeah, it doesn't really
Trust
matter.
me, yeah, exactly. So I don't know how much they're looking after the fans. That's
I mean, in the past few years, the ones I've seen, Cardiff Met played down in Barry, and I thought it was a later kickoff. So they played Cambrian and Clydach at Barry. From here, was it half an hour on the train? From Cambrian and Clydach, maybe hour in the car. It was an ideal location in the evening, and it was a great night.
Great night, yeah, that's what I mean. It doesn't sound. It's not. It should appeal to us. We should be like, oh, look at that, lovely time, lovely venue, boys. Let's get a car. Let's go. Let's get on the bus, whatever.
Yeah.
Mate, I don't fancy it.
Don't fancy it straight up. No messing.
Mate, let's talk about the teams though, because obviously we've got Cardiff, mate. You said they've won only 1 in 4 of these finals. Christian Edwards, rumours this might be his final year. They'll want to go out on a bang, right? But Connors Key, they didn't beat them in the league this year.
Yeah, I think Connors Key, they've got a lot of strong players. Aaron Edwards, he is one standout player. He's played for Wales C team, which is kind of the best players out of this league.
Okay.
So he's a standout player for sure. For Cardiff Met, on the other hand, though, they've got an experienced squad by now. You know, Adam Roscoe's come back. He played for Wimbledon.
Huge
for a
asset.
year. Huge asset. And he was unreal when he used to play. Well, when he played in his previous stint here. He was probably the best striker in the league at the time. Might not be right now, but on his day, he'll be excellent, of course. Talking about Christian Edwards last year in the job. He wants to win this for sure. Like when you listen to some of his interviews, he doesn't seem as enthusiastic as maybe some other coaches or other players, but honestly, deep down, he's desperate to win this one.
Yeah. No,
Absolutely.
You say that, yeah, it's interesting you say that about Christian because neither of the head coaches for the men or the women's team are that animated on the touchline, but they're mentally focused. Like, it's actually phenomenal to see what the work they do behind the scenes.
Joe, it's the man management you see from our coaches at Cardiff, mate. You touched upon it a little bit earlier with the rugby, and I don't know if it's because we are sports coaching is huge at this university, and a lot of them do study. I think Christian Edwards is doing a PhD as well in sports coaching, and probably similar on the rugby side as well. Their man management is exceptional, and like you say, not super animated on the touchline, but you bet behind the scenes he really does take his athletes and his football players to one side.
Yeah, he does, and from experience talking to some players from that squad. I've spoken to Craig Davis a few times this year. They all think he's brilliant. He might not give that persona to us, outside looking in, that he is enthusiastic and loves it, but in the changing room, he's brilliant, and he's got such a good tactical brain. He's taken this squad from, I think it's about 5 divisions below the Prem.
The progression is crazy.
It's crazy, isn't it? And some players like Elliot Evans have been there from the start and is still here now. So
what a journey, innit? It's interesting. You say about the PhD that he's done. Matt was mentioning. He just knows what's important. He knows that. It's quite a unique setting here. We've got all the cameras, we're filming it, we're commentating, there's highlights, there's interviews. He doesn't let that get to him. I know a lot of coaches would play up, there's coaches in the real world.
Yep.
Sorry, not in the real world, we are in the real world. in the
outside university.
Yeah, in the Premier League, I was thinking, outside the university setup that, would play up to that, and they do play up to that. Christian doesn't let that get to him. He does his job. He knows what's important.
I mean, on Christian as well, I'm surprised he hasn't wanted to go for a higher, manage a higher club. I'm sure he would have had offers or there would have been that career progression there, but he seems content, like you say, to bring this team up.
I think it'd be interesting to see what he potentially does next. I'm not sure if he's staying on as a lecturer or anything in Cardiff. That's something to get to know. But I think that there could be potential that he does go to a better team in the Welsh Prem system.
Is there such thing? Right.
Can't be.
Let's hear from Christian. We've spoken a lot about him. Let's hear from his thoughts after the game on Saturday.
All right, Coach. Finally, a nice win today. Great performance, great result. What are your thoughts on everything?
Yeah, it was a semi-final edge to the game, local derby edge to the game, and we treated it like a game, not like a semi-final. And we had to treat it like a game, because if you start thinking of anything else, then it causes you a problem. I wanted us to get back to winning ways. I wanted to get back to performances, and I felt the first half, after the sloppy start, I felt we did that in abundance. I thought we looked very good for our going in at 2-1, and I was pleased with the overall performance.
Now, 3 goals today obviously engineered the win. Is this just a result of more clinical finishing, or what inspired those 3 goals today?
I think you look at the 3 goals, but more importantly, the chances that we create, the amount of shots on target we've had. We've had 1 disallowed towards the end. We've had a few then fizzed across the box. And it was just about speaking to the players about what we feel we need to do more of and where we want the forward players to be. And we wanted those forward players to be in the box, in between the white sticks. And we've done that. And then we secured areas around the box through Elliot and Kyle. And it worked for us today. I thought it was awful conditions for both sets of players. It credited both sets of players. But when we had to go against the wind, it was about rolling sleeves up. And we haven't shown that, probably a little bit of desire in recent weeks to be able to do that, but we did it today with aplomb and in abundance. So I was really pleased.
Great. Coach, thank you for your time. Good luck as you guys get ready for the final soon.
Cheers, thank you very much.
Well, boys, I just bring you in. That was Christian Edwards after the fixture on Saturday. But look, let's just get some live results now from the Bucks fixtures, which are happening earlier today. Griff.
Yeah, so both the men's first team and the women's first team have gone away to Bath in a bit of a varsity clash. Cardiff Met love these ones usually. So by that...
Oh, no, don't bring us bad news, Griff.
So the men's unfortunately lost 1-0. Again to Bath, so like the previous fixture here on Kingsway campus, they've lost 1-0. Tom Banks for Bath scored on the 75th minute. Then it goes bad. It goes even worse, boys. It goes from bad to worse. The women's are losing as well. Currently, it's 5-1 to Bath.
Oh, that's a mad result for the women.
Yeah, considering that the women they're unbeaten this year.
Surely we can only assume they're just resting players now.
Yeah, well...
Interesting time to make that decision.
Yeah. It's hard to know why they'd rest players, but to be fair to a lot of the women's players, they play Wednesday, Saturday. Unlike the men's,
where they've got the 2 teams and they switch it up.
I think that's potentially why it was a closer game, maybe in the men's game.
Yeah, no, we said about the games. We're regulars down the rugby. We've all been to our fair share of the football. Bath was one of the games I actually went to. I think we were all there actually for the Bath game.
Yeah.
1-0 surprises me. From what I saw when Bath came here, I didn't think it was too much of a. It wasn't that close. I kind of liked how we were playing, and I think on another day we could have won.
Yeah.
Today is that other day, and we've lost again.
Yeah, I believe Bath is one of them teams, pushing towards the top of the table. They've always seemed to have a good Bucks sports squad, especially in the football. They always seem to get one over us, especially this season. But I think the bigger talking point is the women's losing 5-1. They've been doing so well this year.
Well, that's what I mean. When we cut together our highlights of you always want to see that something special. And in all fairness, that women's team has given us a lot of special moments. We've seen hat tricks, we've seen volleys, we've seen it all from the women's team. And that surprises me. I don't know about how you guys feel. I'm pretty surprised in the studio. I think.
Absolutely, boys. Bring me some more positive news.
Yeah, we can bring a little bit. Welsh football isn't all bad at the moment. Me and Griff went down to the Wales-Belgium game, talk about the international team. Got a good draw there. It means we got a home draw in the playoffs for the World Cup, and that draw's also been done. Griff, do you want to talk us through a little bit of that?
Yeah, so the draw, it was a big moment for myself. I was very invested in this, glued to the screen.
I'm sure Matt was as well.
I'm sure we're all. Well, I was going to say we're all used to this. Matt this year for West Ham in the Europa League, watching that draw, taking half an hour for them to do the first ball. But anyway, once we got there, we were ecstatic with what we got. So first team out was Scotland, then Wales, which meant if we were playing home against a team from a lower seed, and if we won that, we played Scotland. And then from all the second seed teams, it was either North Macedonia or Austria. All the fans wanted, and we got Austria.
Yeah,
it couldn't have been any better. Scotland host Ukraine in their first match. That's going to be a tight one.
That's a difficult game. Ukraine are a good team.
They're a good team.
They're a good team.
They got to what? Euros quarterfinal.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. But I think the Scottish crowd, and I'm looking at the Scottish team, I'm thinking, that's like Wales 2016, Robertson in his prime, Tierney in his prime, McTominay in his prime, McGinn in his prime, Adams playing well. That seems to be their kind of the peak of their kind of international team since the 2000s, maybe even further back.
Maybe a little bit further back.
Yeah, but it's going to be a tough game. Wales need to win against Austria at home, and if we get through that one, it's going to be, I'd assume, Scotland.
You can't assume that. No, it's interesting that you said that when you were listing the names in that Scotland team.
Yeah,
who would I want, Scotland or Ukraine? Because Ukraine have a few good players. You'll know one of them very well from West Ham.
Yarmolenko.
What a player!
No, and the thing is, he showed, before the tournament that we watched in the summer, he was the man highlighted from that Ukrainian team. But I know a lot of men doing their fantasy teams might have dropped him and replaced him with a couple of other Ukrainians because there were a few of them that played well.
Yeah.
And the Scottish boys, if they make it, they'll Robertson and all them, they'll feature in a few teams.
So, if Wales do beat Austria, Scotland beat Ukraine, where's that game going to be held, Griff?
The game's going to be held in Cardiff. So that's what was unbelievable about this draw as well. So after they concluded the rest of the semi-final playoffs, they drew the ball to see who would be hosting the second leg, and Wales were hosting the second leg. So it couldn't have gone any better for Wales. It was unbelievably lucky that we got this draw, and it's probably the best chance we've had since '58 to go to a World Cup, because Austria pretty straightforward, and then the Scots or Ukraine. But I would say, if we are home to Scotland, the travel, it's not that difficult to get down from Scotland to Cardiff, really, a train or a plane. There's so many, car even, you could walk technically.
You can do it, is what you're saying.
What I'm saying is there's going to be thousands, if not tens of thousands of Scots down in Cardiff, and that's going to be dangerous.
Yeah.
There is the small factor that the World Cup have actually extended the amount of teams they're allowing to play in the World Cup.
Is that some sort of some sort of danger towards Wales? You're only getting in because there's more teams.
That may aid Wales of chances.
It does.
You say that, but I don't know if it was just because I was a lot younger when we have tried to qualify in the past. I always think Euros, they back us, and then when I think about the World Cup, actually following it stage by stage now that I'm old enough to fully understand it, it's not an easy qualification. There's Italy, there's Portugal. They're in the same position as us.
They are.
Yeah.
They're good teams. You've seen how good they are. They're certainly better than Wales on paper. And I don't remember a time, even though there's more teams, where it was actually so difficult.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just a feeling that I have, but it's by no means felt easier because there were more teams.
I think in general, normally with a qualification for the World Cup, what's happened previously is there's 10 groups in Europe, and then from them 10 groups, all the group winners go through, and then there's a playoff between the 6 best runners up. So this time they've extended the playoffs to include 12 teams rather than just the 6. But it feels as if there's so many good teams that have missed out somehow.
It's bizarre. Yeah.
How are Portugal and Italy not automatically qualifying for this World Cup? It's bizarre to me. The European champions have not qualified. It's mental that they with their teams. Well, Jorginho, third in the Ballon d'Or list.
I think on that note, Matt, because of COVID and stuff, some of these international breaks have been really, really strange. You know, we've seen Argentina and Brazil struggle to fill players, and players struggling to travel out there. We've had players almost boycott international duties during this COVID as well. So I think that has caused a lot of problems for some international teams.
Yeah, it's the COVID situation does affect many international teams. We've seen it. Do you remember the Brazil-Argentina game that got called off?
Yeah, when all the officials
got on the pitch. Yeah,
you know, it's been mental. But you know, on international, England women played last night.
Yeah, I'm sure you were.
Thing is, this is the thing, right? So when he said about the little dig about how it's easy to qualify for the World Cup, I was thinking, mate, I watched you win 10-0 against San Marino the other day, and I was thinking, there's no more time in a game to score any more goals.
Yeah, 10's a lot. 10's a lot.
I came in last night from playing a bit of five-a-side, and the score of my five-a-side game was 18-10, right? So, and that's five-a-side. The pitch is as big as the studio we're in.
Right, yeah.
And I sit down and I see that in full international football, the England women had won 20-0. What is that?
It was four hat-tricks.
4 hat-tricks and
all the players apart from the keeper scored. Do you know what I mean?
So boys, my argument to you is, should that be allowed? Like, why is that happening? Is that genuinely good for women's sport to have such a landslide victory? Like, to me, it's kind of a red flag, and I'm thinking, look, how it was Latvia, wasn't it? How are Latvia able to qualify as a women international team? Surely there should be some sort of minimum standard, because that's not good for the game. No. It's not going to inspire the next generation.
It's nothing to do with England. I don't think it's anything to do with the England women team.
Mate, you can only go out there and beat who you got.
The women do their job. You can't, 20-0. If you can get 30, 40. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, go for it.
These are rugby scores.
Yeah, rugby
don't
scores.
Stop though, because you're good enough.
Yeah,
it's the other side of the coin. It's the Latvia women. I haven't seen them play before until last night.
I don't think they have played before, mate.
They can't have.
No, it's harsh, but
First time seeing
how
football.
do you do it then? Because everyone's got a right to play. Every country has a right to represent themselves. Yeah. But I think it says more about the Latvian team than the England
I think maybe at this point in the women's game, there needs to be some sort of seeding thought out, and these matchups shouldn't happen. And it should be like, if you're inside the top 20, you can play each other until the rest of the world kind of catch up. Because don't forget, we are leading the way. Us in America are really leading the way in women's sport.
And then as well as that, I think maybe the Nations League structure would work better in the women's game, because Latvia would probably have a better game playing Wales, Wales isn't even as bad as Latvia, but it'd be a fairer game, or even Estonia. Wales beat Estonia 5-0.
Yeah, you say a fairer game. We watched Wales versus Estonia. Yeah, 5-0. In normal football, that's a landslide victory in my book.
Yeah.
And Estonia offered nothing but a structured defence. It seems that last night nothing was offered by the opposition. But I think you are right. If you put the England national team, the Wales national team against each other, we see a much better game, and I'd much rather see that.
An interesting topic, boys. The hour's flown by. We've covered a lot of topics. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. And until next time.
That's all from us today. Join us next time on Cardiff Met Radio.